Ready?
Good morning, everybody. How y'all doing? Somebody's got to mute their stuff. And happy Sunday, happy New Year, happy. It's 2024, and I don't quite know how I feel about that yet. I don't believe it. I think we're still in 2023, just part two. We'll see how it goes. I have a feeling today is going to be a great year. um, let's get to the chat. Good morning, everybody. Hello, Mr. Pines, Trail Dust, Shane Lalonde, uh, and that's it. Bortagov. And okay, hi, guys. Everybody still hungover from New Year's? Um, but yeah. So
No.
no, we are back, and my "we are back" tag is all not centered. There we go. Anyway, yeah, a little bit of a lack of energy this morning. What's up, Mr. Burnell? And yeah, I suppose all the other lurkers. Uh, so, uh, I was going to start this off with the "How was your week?" but it's been a lot of weeks, so I guess we'll go into "How was your a lot of weeks?"
Yeah. Mine have been pretty good. I gotta say. Since the last time we were on, I was at home on days off, and then I didn't work for like 14 days. That really sucked. The fuel pump went out in my pickup, which was great because I was on my way home from my therapist, and I thought I blew the motor. Luckily, it was just the fuel tank or the fuel pump, and got that switched out. No problem. Um, Yeah, I didn't do a whole lot. Some things in my personal life kind of changed for the better. Stuff I can't really get into, I don't guess. Um, I don't know. I'm doing really well. I gotta say, I'm really excited for what this year is going to bring. Both in the realm of the Impractical Blacksmiths and what we've got going on, and also, I mean, just in general, work and home life. Everything is, man. I'm telling you, this is my year. I've got my goals, and people ask, "Oh, you have any New Year's resolutions?" I don't believe in having a New Year's resolution because that's just some dumb shit you tell yourself at the beginning of the year that's going to last about a week. What I do is I kind of try to set objectives, goals for the year, something that I want to accomplish before the year is out, rather than I'm going to do this all year. This is where I want to be next. And a couple of those things are pretty easy. Like one of my goals for this year is to pay off my house. That shouldn't be that hard to do. I mean, considering it's scheduled for September, but um, that and there are a few other things that are just they're personal to me, and that are things that I want to achieve this year, and this year's looking pretty good to get most of those knocked out. So I've had a great couple weeks. Last week I worked my butt off 8 hours per day. That was tough, but especially after not working for 2 weeks, come right back into a 16-hour day, a 24-hour day, and 220s. So. Um, Yeah, and that's about it, I think. Just been chilling. Oh yeah. I did finish my. I don't think I showed it to you guys, but I did finish my belt buckle. And let me open up this
So
right
shiny.
here so I can see it. Yeah. There we go. You can see the kind of the copper butterfly with the gold gilding, and it's stainless. This bit is stainless steel. Uh, Gilded with silver. Anyways, I finished that up last month, and yeah, there were several that were considerably better than mine, so no worries there. Um, and so this month we're doing something a little bit different. We're doing a rose, and I got out there yesterday to start working on mine, and I realized, oh, I need a different hammer. It's a hammer that I don't have, so I thought, oh, well, I love an excuse to make a hammer, you know. So
Right?
so I go to the scrap bin and I pull an S cam out, and throw it in the fire to anneal it right quick before I cut it. And then I'm like, all right, where's my hammer eye punch? I don't see it. So I called my son-in-law. I was like, hey, would you go to the garage and see if I left this at home? And I described to him what it looked like. He's like, oh, yeah, it's hanging on the wall there with all the hammers. I was like, son of a. So now I got to build a hammer eye punch so I can build the hammer so I can make the rows, you know? And I'm like, well, I got the punch done, and I got the hammer eye punched, and I started smushing it down into a cross peen. And at that time last night, my hand was starting to hurt a little bit, so I was like, yep, I'm gonna call it a day, and I'll finish it up tomorrow when I get done with the show. So, got to work night shift tonight up near Carlsbad, New Mexico, but I'll have 4 hours or so between the show and the time I got to leave for that. So.
Right.
And that's my this week and current roundabouts. Yeah. What about you, Adam? What's your 3 weeks been like?
Everybody pull out your popcorn.
My 3 weeks have been busy, but not that interesting. So in the week leading up to Christmas, of course, I was off on my off week. And so we celebrated Yule, as most people in the chat would know, or most of our listeners would know. I'm not Christian. I'm Norse pagan. So we celebrated Yule on the equinox, which is a summer equinox for us. But still, we being that time of year, you know, technically for us, Yule is midwinter, which is June sometimes. But because it's that time of year, we celebrate Yule at the summer equinox anyway, which I believe was about the 20th this year. And then Christmas Day was actually, I had to go back to work, so I worked night shifts, and so Christmas Day was actually I go back to work. So Christmas Eve, I stayed up and was working on my book, doing a bit more work, and then went to sleep fairly early because on Sunday, as is tradition for my family, we always catch up for Christmas lunch. So and I'm particularly with my dad's health at the moment. It's very important for me to make sure that I do try and get there and have these memorable times with him. So spent Christmas lunchtime, Christmas Day at my parents' place, eating far too much food and having a few drinks before I packed up, and then spent that week at work. So even New Year's Eve. With the way my rosters work, I'm either working Christmas or I'm working New Year's, and this last year or two has actually fallen on where I'm either working Christmas Day and then I've got New Year's Day off, or I'm working Christmas Eve and I've got New Year's Eve off. So so I happened to be working Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve this year, so I didn't get to. I saw in the new year, but I didn't actually get to celebrate the new year until the next day. And even then, it was fairly quiet affair for me. Apart from that, I've just been trying to keep it's getting into wet season here. It's getting in the peak of wet season at the moment. So I'm just trying to make sure that I'm keeping my grass down and my boundaries mowed and all that type of thing. I unfortunately did more damage to my slasher the other week. The temporary repair that I did about a month ago that I spoke on before we went on break, I was reversing up, and unfortunately because it was chrome alloy, it was just a quick fix to get me through. I reversed up and clipped a tree, and it shattered, so I had to go and find a replacement piece of steel to fix that up. Now it's properly fixed. So just been run around on my tractor getting that all fixed and trying not to get bogged in the waterlogged ground that we got here at the moment. Apart from that, I haven't even been out to really been into my workshop nor to get anything done. I've just been to flat hammer, cleaning up, and of course you guys would call it hurricane season, but it's cyclone season here as well. So, make sure the yard and everything's cleaned up so that if a cyclone comes through, it doesn't, end up throwing bits of steel at my house. So that's been pretty much it. And also, for Christmas, I got my wife a whole heap of plants, shade trees and stuff like that, in order to keep her happy, and which really has. She's a plant person, so I got her about $700 Australian worth of plants, and so she's absolutely happy trying to keep them alive at the moment, which is relatively easy at this time of year. But she has a fairly good green thumb. but that's pretty much it. And in a nutshell, I haven't really been able to do much. Been catching up with friends and family just to celebrate the new year. And like Alexis, I do have goals for this year. I'm much the same. I don't really have resolutions as opposed to goals. And I've been starting to work on them already. So first is get my workshop finished this year, get my big workshop finished and up and running, and everything down there, so I can get do a little bit better production. Even without power, at least if I have the workshop completed, then the power situation is just a matter of getting the bits and pieces together to do that. The reason why it's stalled is I need to get the money together in order to do the foundations. Then next one is getting a bit more flexible. I've noticed that as I'm getting older, I'm getting a little bit more stiff. So I'm waiting for a joke from Yamez about that.
I already wrote it.
Right. But yeah, so that's it. Just getting more flexible, because I'm getting a little bit less flexible as I get older, and need to improve that. And the other one is finish the workshop and get that up and running.
Oh.
So
That reminds me, when you brought up flexible there. One of the things I've started doing is shut up, Yamez. One of the things I've started doing, so for the month of January, I'm doing a charity thing. I'm I'm participating in the Trevor Project's 40 Meaningful Miles challenge. Got a little fundraiser thing going on my Facebook page. Y'all don't got to donate to it. Don't worry about that. I mean, it's more of a challenge to myself and to hold myself accountable. I'm donating $1 a mile that I do for the month of January. I've got a goal of about 60 miles, and I put up $20 up front, which is half of the 40 meaningful miles. And so every morning I get up, I do a half hour of yoga, and then I do around about 2 miles on the stationary bike that's right behind me here. And as much as I can get in 10 minutes or so, because I am limited with time. And then and then I go about getting ready for work. But so far I'm doing pretty decent, I guess. I'm at like 6 or 7 miles, something like that. And I forgot to log yesterday's miles at 2.5, and then this morning was 1.5. I was kind of in a hurry, so. But anyway, so I'm doing that and working on my flexibility, and that was one of my goals is not just to do this exercise for the month for the charity thing, but to kind of get myself into a routine, so to speak, and kind of work on my cardio and my overall cardiovascular health and whatnot, and I'm hoping this is kind of the motivation that I can turn this into something that that goes on every day, not just, oh, well, the challenge is done, I don't have to do that shit anymore. So, working on my health, or at least trying to. And and then also that somehow, I'm not really sure how, also came with not drinking. And last night I decided to partake for the first time in like 6 days, and I had 2. And I woke up this morning and pardon the French, but it felt like a cat shit in my mouth. I'm just like, what the hell? This never used to happen before. All right, well, so much for that idea. So, yeah.
And a little bit later on, I'll tie that into with today's topic. But for the moment, Yamez, how was your time off?
Oh my gosh, it was busy. It was, I say time off, but like I took advantage and, sorry, I was just setting something up in the corner here. As you guys know, it's like a couple months ago, it's like I took over a Web3, a gaming project, or rather I took over a project and we turned it into a gaming project. And I've pretty much spent the entire past few weeks working on the art for it and the community for it. And we released officially January 2nd a NFT series. And again, ain't trying to get anybody involved in it, literally just what I've been doing. And yeah, it's going pretty good. I mean, it's a lot of work. I really wanted to sit down and watch season 2 of Sweet Home, which is like a Korean horror show, and it's only 8 episodes, and it took me. I literally finished the last episode yesterday because every time I'd sit down to do something, or be it eat dinner or watch the show or something, like I'd be in the chats, I'd be talking with people, and like it'd start to wind down. I'm like, all right, I can sit and do something, and as soon as it's like I get like 30 minutes in, and it's just all of a sudden my phone just go ba-ding, 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 and it's like, I guess I don't get to take a breather. So been a lot of fun with that. I did get out to the shop for a little bit. I climbed over some stuff. I needed something from back there, and while I was back there, I sparked up the propane forge and just kind of tinkered. I didn't really have a goal. I just tinkered. But I am going to just because I'm proud of the artwork. I am going to put a little thing, a GIF of the NFTs that I created, just because I'm very proud of the artwork. I had a lot of fun there. But yeah, had a good Christmas. Got together with family and had a prime rib that was the size of the freaking plate. It's like I had to have my meat plate and then like a little smaller plate for the sides because there was no room on the dinner plate for any sides. Yeah, like that's a lot of meat. But really, I mean, that's pretty much it, as for stuff that I had a meeting. Yeah. As for stuff that would be considered interesting, not much. I played with textures and steel. I had an idea and I can't remember it. I can't remember it for the life of me. But yeah, I feel like I'm getting kind of boring in my old age. I figured I'd be like a race car driver now, exalting you guys with tales of like, top speed kind of thing. Like, oh yeah. But no. I'm boring myself here. Hey, Mr. Coffee. Kidding. Yeah, I am boring.
Coffee said it. I wasn't going to say anything, but Coffee said it.
I love you, John. Oh, I need to take my pills. I forgot to take my pills this morning.
Gee, you are getting old, aren't
you? Yeah.
Yeah, you're getting old. You're getting old when you go like, oh, I forgot to take my pills.
Yeah.
You're getting old when you got to say it out loud.
But yeah, my pill thing is empty. I got to refill it.
That's even worse, Yamez.
Shut up.
Yourself a hole here. It's good to talk to you again.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So for everyone in the chat, well, when we took vacation from each other as well. We pretty much haven't. Well, I haven't talked to these two for a couple of weeks.
You're a pill minder, and I raise you that.
So yeah, we took time off talking. Well, I took time off talking to everyone pretty much. I've been hermitage, but
no, we all kind of stopped for a bit. We took a break, and I do apologize to anybody that I normally talk to regularly, but I was so engrossed with what I was doing, and I know that nobody else really cares about it. So, yeah. I have been playing.
It was kind of odd. We took 3 weeks off, and I think we maybe had we didn't like verbally talk at all. We just had like that one little interchange like last week or something like that on Discord where we talked about having the staff meeting that we never had, and that was it.
Yeah,
we all just kind of did our own thing and took our time off.
I will say this. Somebody had said something about a pirate in the chat earlier. I picked up a new game and been playing it with some friends, and I've been having a freaking blast. I mean, it's like right up my alley. It's the Sea of Thieves. Okay, I have been. It's a pirate game. It is insanely fun, and it's like extremely nerve wracking. You're out, it's like when you're working the sail, like to move the boat. It's like you have to, you have to deal with the anchor, the wind direction, sails, angle of the sails, all that stuff, and it's like really fun like that. But like also it's a PvP pirate game, so you're going out and you're collecting treasure and stuff, but you're also watching out for people who are trying to steal the treasure from you. So it's like you're constantly, all right, check the horizon, all right, check the horizon. I feel like a freaking meerkat. It's like I'll be doing something, it's like but it is insanely fun.
Yep, a friend of mine used to play that game. I used to love watching him play. It was awesome. I'm not very computer literate to be able to play it myself, but it was good fun to watch him play. So yeah. I have heard of that game. Yeah. But yeah, on that note, let's get into today's topic.
Yes.
Which is, apart from we are back, this year, we're going back to our roots. We're going back to discussing. Yeah, we've always discussed blacksmithing. We're going back to basically discussing the basics of blacksmithing and how to start out, and beginners information, and also some information there for those of you, those of us that are a bit more experienced and whatnot. But it's always very important to know your basics. There's an old saying, you don't know until you teach, and you can't teach until you know. So going back and doing those practice things, or going back and rehashing the basics is something that's very important. And we did last year on history, and we've done power tools and stuff like that. But to start off this year, we decided to discuss. We always have a laugh about, you're not a real blacksmith unless you're X, unless you're using a bellows, or unless you're, unless you're doing everything by hand, or unless you've got, a proper anvil, or, unless you're working by candlelight or working by the forge light. So what makes a blacksmith? And Yamez, considering you never have input into these types of conversations, let's start with you. What's your opinion on what makes a blacksmith?
If I'm going like esoterically, it's working, by the plain definition, somebody who works with, iron and, ferrous metals at an anvil or at a forge, heating the metal and then shaping it into a design, be it art, be it tool, be it, whatever. And nowhere in that, in my opinion, does it say a blacksmith is somebody who stands in a, stone building with a dirt floor, with no power, and, doing everything, the traditional way, because, to me, a blacksmith is an innovator. If he needs something, he makes it, if there's an easier technique, he'll use it because the work is hard enough. A blacksmith to me is a creator, somebody who takes and creates something from nothing, or from a hunk of something that anybody else would look at and be like, that's useless, could take something and make it useful or beautiful, so to me, in a one word, a blacksmith is a creator.
Fair enough. Alexis, what about you? What, in your opinion, what makes it?
I'm gonna play devil's advocate, and I'm gonna say you're not a real blacksmith unless you make your living doing it. Otherwise, you're just screwing around. No, it's one of those things.
Right,
it's kind of a that's messed up, but yeah.
I'll call him out.
Damn it. But no, I think the question's fairly moot even at that point, because what does it matter what a blacksmith is? I mean, like, I mean, what you call yourself is irrelevant. I mean, if you're out there, getting something hot and reshaping it and doing what you want with it, I mean, good enough. Like Jack said, a smith means one who crafts with material, and black refers to iron. A white smith is a tinsmith. A silversmith works with silver. A blacksmith works with iron or steel, whatever. And but I think it's all fairly irrelevant. I mean, what makes a blacksmith? I don't know. If that's what you want to call yourself that. I don't really think. Well, no, I guess there are people in this community that do gatekeep and be like, well, you're not a real blacksmith unless da 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 da. You're not a real blacksmith if you do YouTube. You're not a real blacksmith if you don't have a power hammer and a press.
You're not a real blacksmith if you don't do a 6 o'clock stream. Shut up, John.
Exactly. You're not a real blacksmith if you don't sell your work. I mean, like there are people that do that level of gatekeeping, and I think we kind of know who they are. But I wish he was here for that, because that would have really been funny then. Otherwise, it's just a waste.
Roy, I will say this for his success, and just not to freaking sidetrack or anything, but for Roy's success and skill level, and if there was anybody who had a right to say, no, this is what defines a real modern blacksmith, it would be Roy. And he doesn't do that. He, through all his success and through all his, achievements, he's kept a level head, like really, he really has. So I give Roy all the credit in the world for being, as arrogant as some people can see him, he is a very humble person when it really comes down to it. So I give him credit for that.
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
that's not me gushing. He's not here. He's probably not even going to hear that I said that, but yeah.
Oh yeah. I'll throw a plug in there. All of this. I got all these blanks at blacksmithingblanks.com. Stainless steel seashell, copper butterfly. Which I thought was funny, because like Thomas is in the competition with me, and I mean, like, he had to like box up my order and send it to me. So I'm like, yeah, he already knows what I'm doing.
And John,
I think yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say to John real quick, Burnell. I know that I'm missing out on my 6 o'clock live stream tonight. For example, I've got a meeting with a marketing guy and a developer for an upcoming relaunch. So it's like when I say I'm busy, it's not me just making excuses. It's I've turned myself into a point where, like, I've got people relying on me. I'm kind of running, a project. I have responsibility right now. It's ridiculous. I love doing it. I'm enjoying myself. I'm having fun, but it is time consuming. So I do apologize. I will at some point get back to doing forging live streams. I do love doing those. So yeah, sorry. I just wanted to address that to the chat.
All that responsibility, and you still managed to look homeless.
Hey, you know what? This has been my look for like 30 years. Okay, I turned 10, put on a flannel and some ripped jeans, and like I've never taken them off. I mean, yeah, I say flannel, but I'm wearing
Hawaiian.
All right, sorry to interject and interrupt.
Yep. Well, see, going back to actually interesting in what you said. You said that Roy as a modern blacksmith, has the right to, has somewhat of a right to say, what is real blacksmithing. And the funny thing is, and what a lot of people, we associate blacksmithing with old and with quote unquote traditional. But what a lot of people forget is that, like Yame said, and Alexa said, blacksmiths were innovators, blacksmiths were inventors. Blacksmiths have always been modern. Right,
at the forefront of technology.
Yeah, and blacksmiths. It might sound weird, but blacksmiths were the first to start installing electricity in their shops in order to get better light. Blacksmiths were the first people to en masse to take up, powered, be that steam or gasoline or wood-fired engines or whatnot. First to take up engines in order to run power by belt power in their shop. When coal started becoming, and funnily enough, using coal as a forging fuel is relatively modern. And I say relatively modern in the sense of blacksmithing history. It only really became massively widespread at the end of the 18th century, early 19th century, so the end of 1700s, early 1800s. The bottom blast tweer didn't really become a thing. The first bottom blast tweer was patented in the 1840s. So, and that was a boost in technology. And there's always been holdouts that you're not a blacksmith unless you use a side blast tweer or side blast forge with a bellows and stuff like that. The blower, the crank blower that we use nowadays, that was only really invented, or first patents for those were in the 1860s. So. And by the 1880s, it was only, holdouts in country forges or farm blacksmiths that still used bellows. So, like when changes happened, blacksmiths were fast to take them up. The power hammer, the standalone like Little Giant and stuff like that, they weren't invented really as a mass produced product for blacksmiths until the 1870s, 1880s, and we know them as synonymous with working out. But prior to that, it was, home built hammers or trip hammers and stuff like that, or particularly because labor was cheap, having a striker was actually for most blacksmiths more economically viable than having a power hammer. So prior to the 1880s, power hammers practically didn't exist except for in large industrial shops or in, railway shops around the world. So, these things are, people say, oh, you're not a real blacksmith unless you have X. Blacksmiths were known to change with the times, and it was actually a sign of great pride from most smiths to have a modern and up-to-date shop. But that said, like I said, there were holdouts throughout time. There always have been holdouts. You're not a real blacksmith unless you're doing X. And that goes way back to that would go back way back to ancient times, in the sense of like when a standalone forge or a permanent forge were the thing. I'm sure there would have been Iron Age smiths that turned around and said, oh, you're not a real smith unless you carry your tools with you and you're working on the farms and fixing implements at their place. So for me, you're not a real smith. And I'm going to say this because it's going to get me hate, and I know it is. You're not a real smith if you gatekeep and tell other people what a real smith is. So it's kind of an oxymoron there, because I'm kind of not a real smith myself by just saying that. But so, I've just said water or animal-driven hammers have been around since medieval times. That's right. But, again, that's to be able to have a water or power-driven or animal-driven hammer, for example, you had to, be in a place where water was, able to be accessed, or B, be able to afford as a smith to have that animal and feed and keep that animal, which means you were fairly successful as it was. Human labor, again, was cheaper than animal labor. You've got to remember that, for example, a horse or even an ass or donkey was an expensive item, because it was used for, tilling land and all that type of thing. A good horse back then was equivalent to a modern car. The price ranges, of course. It might, for example, you might see prices of £100, for example, for a horse in medieval England, but that £100 equates to several hundred, $100,000 odd dollars in today's currency because of inflation and growth. So factoring in those different changes. Yeah, for example, a horse was a very expensive item. That's the reason why you could pay a human laborer 4 pence a day, for example, whereas a horse would cost you a lot more because you had that upfront cost, plus you had the feeding and housing costs of those animals as well. As a blacksmith that wasn't also farming or producing their own crops in order to cover that costs for an animal, that was an extra expense. So those things are, you take those factors into account, and that's the reason why Smiths went with the times. Like Yama said, they would pick up the new techniques or pick up the new tools or whatnot, because it made life not only easier but cheaper. So if you could do more work for the same price, then of course that came down to profit, which means you were able to have better better situation for yourself in general. As you can see in the picture behind me, let me spin the right way. In the picture behind me, this is a shop from probably about the 1890s in America. And if you look right at the top, just up here, that is where a shaft actually ran for belt-driven machinery. Just behind there's a whole heap of belt machinery. Right at the back is a woodworking shop, and also this shop, in the description of this shop, that actually were discussing how they'd installed electric lighting, and you can see how then this is originally a black and white photo, but as you can see with a black and white photo from the 1800s, just how well lit this shop was. Sure, they would have used a gunpowder flash, but still you can see the light coming in from the windows at the back and the windows at the side. Obviously it's got a very large open front door. There's a big area just behind my head where that would have been the shoeing floor, or area for working on wagons and whatnot. But this was a very well lit, very airy workshop. They've got brick and mortar, forges. Sorry, I'm pointing the wrong way again. Brick and mortar forges, behind them. And for example, a lot of people say you don't use concrete for forges. Well, what's mortar made of? Mortar is generally made out of Portland cement. And blacksmiths at this time were making entire forges out of concrete. So, and I have some plans for those, but so they were embracing the forward march of technology and forward march of industry as well, and in a lot of circumstances created it. We all know, okay, it was an engineer that came with the lathe, but it was the blacksmiths that blacksmiths turned machinists that perfected its use. Blacksmiths, I've got dozens and dozens and dozens of anecdotes of where blacksmiths created their own acetylene generators in order to produce oxyacetylene so that they could actually do welding, because it was, in certain circumstances, it was cheaper and faster than doing fire welding. When electrical welding came in, they took advantage of electrodes because, hey, makes it easier, makes it faster. Automobile mechanics, a lot there are, particularly from the 1900s to the 1920s, a lot of blacksmiths were, things were becoming more mass produced, particularly because of the war and stuff like that. So blacksmiths turned, there were less carriages, more cars, and the blacksmith shop became the first mechanic shops and the first gas stations and the first service stations, in the sense that had the oils and all that type of thing, and they could weld up your springs, and when they broke a spring or when you busted an axle, these guys were the guys that embraced all that type of thing. So if any of us out there have a history in being an automobile mechanic, you have a strong and solid history in blacksmithing. That's what you do.
Side note to exactly that, Scotty is the place that I bring we bring our work trucks and we bring all of our vehicles to. The mechanic has a forge and an anvil and a tool set there. They don't use them, but the previous owner, Tim, who Scotty bought it from, he would use it to work on cars and stuff. Like if he needed something, he would use it. And it was like, it didn't click to me. I always thought it was just a neat little aside. It didn't click to me until you brought that up. It's like, oh yeah, I mean, like, if you think about it, that's, standard in a mechanics shop, or in a travel repair, or a vehicular repair shop. Because horses, horseshoeing,
Yeah.
wagon wheels, springs.
Yep. Well, and the funny thing is, if you look back if any of you are interested in history, and you look back in history and do some reading, particularly trade journals or books and stuff like that, the term mechanic only became automotive in the 20th century. Mechanic was any engineer, blacksmith, person that worked with machinery or could fix machinery, and blacksmiths were often called mechanics. Way back through history. I mean, like, as you all know, I did a bit of a writing for an archaeology project, which hopefully gets printed this year, so I can actually read it. But all the references to the blacksmiths and the wheelwrights and the cartwrights from Tasmania in that period referred to them as mechanics. I took my wagon to the local mechanic, because that's what they did. This is talking about horse and carts. This is in the 1850s, well before automobiles were a thing. And they were taking it to the mechanic because that's what they did. They fixed. So yeah, so what coming back full circle to what makes a blacksmith. What makes a blacksmith is the ability to heat metal and beat it. Well, heat iron-based metals, be that steel or iron, or raw iron, and make it into a shape. And that doesn't matter if you're using the most basic, a box of dirt and a lump of metal as your anvil, and using a the most basic club hammer that you can find. If that's what you're doing, then it's up to you to decide. We're no longer in the age where trades and guilds control blacksmithing. In some places in the world, you can't call yourself a professional blacksmith unless you have some sort of several years of experience, or you've been deemed by your peers as being worthy of the title. So you may want to call yourself, for example, an apprentice or a learner blacksmith. But I mean, particularly the US has a very, very proud history from settlement of having self-taught blacksmiths, guys that said, well, there's no one here doing that job, I think I can give it a go, and learning on the go, and being for all intents and purposes fairly successful smiths. So if you want to call yourself a learner blacksmith, that's fine, but the only entry into being able to say I'm a smith or I'm a blacksmith is a forge, an anvil, and a hammer, and being able to heat metal and shape it. And that's my 2 cents worth anyway.
Not valuable 2 cents. I mean, if I had that 2 cents every time I picked up a cent, I'd have lots of cent.
You'd have at least 3 cents.
Sure.
He'd still have no sense.
No sense. No sense at all.
Yep. So let's go back through and read some of the chat, because I saw the chat scrolling past as we were going.
I did notice Roy popped in. Hi, Roy.
Hi, Roy.
And then everybody's just fawning over him. I think I saw John Burnell start to swoon. Oh, I'm so mean.
Okay, so
Turtle Dust calls himself an old guy with a hammer.
Yep.
Jack Pines brings up a good point. I've watched enough sheet metal work along with armorers to know it's the same trade applied to different purposes. Yeah, I mean, if you're striking, striking metal with a hammer, to shape it, be it, blacksmith, goldsmith, coppersmith, whitesmith, tinsmith, whatever, it's a lot of the same skill sets and a lot of the same techniques apply. You're taking and shaping something with tools. It's. Let me see.
Well, a good
Aurora
example of
is
that
8 years old. Aurora is 8 years old. Happy birthday, Aurora!
Happy
Happy
birthday, Aurora.
There you go.
But yeah, no, well, an interesting one of that, and it's a trade that no one really thinks about who would be able to pick up a hammer and take to blacksmithing like a duck to water are panel beaters, body repair guys,
Yeah.
because that's exactly what they do every day. And apart from heating up the metal, they're shaping metal with hammers and for all intents and purposes, hammers and anvils, every day. That's exactly what they're doing.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I saw a technique with body work where, and I thought it was brilliant, where they'll take when they're trying to like shape the body back around, shape the sheet around, like they'll take like what basically it was a big metal block on a stick, essentially an anvil, and they'll reach behind and then they'll tap on the front or the kind of the two hammers kind of tapping and stuff from both sides, creating like an anvil and a hammer, but portable. And I thought it was the neatest thing,
Mm.
And then I learned that's
Yep.
That's a technique that they use for riveting and stuff on larger structures, or not so much larger structures, but like more complex structures. They'll basically take something and hit it behind, hold it behind the rivet and then hit against it, So I always thought that was neat.
Mm.
And that's what gave me the idea of having I got a little 15-pound chunk of steel with a flat top that I'll take and put right next to my fire pot for doing, quick forge welds, like a little portable anvil, in the fire, out 2 inches, tap, and then back in the fire,
Yep, that's right. And there's a couple of different names for it. Granddad came through and said it's called a bucking block. Ben said it's a hand anvil, and both are correct depending on where you are in the world. For example, a tweer is called a tweer because that's the common name for it, but it was also called a blowpipe at some stage.
Now,
So was
I was
I.
gonna say, so the bucking block, the hand anvil, and then John Burnell called it dollies. Those same little things for like body work or whatever in aircraft maintenance. We used them on the backside of rivets and we called them bucking bars. And that's because aircraft are all held together with rivets, and you put the rivet set on the front, and you reach around, you hold the bucking bar on the back, and but so. But I mean, the same little tools, and they have different names depending on who's using them, I guess.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's exactly right. And also, I mean, it comes down to and this is something that I've heard Roy discuss in his live streams as well. For example, each the trade. Any given trade will have different names for the same things depending on where you did your trade. Of course, we know Roy was a HVAC professional at one stage, and he would get someone coming in from a different area or a different region that was also a HVAC professional, and they would call different tools same tools different things because that's what they were used to. So all these references for tools are 100% correct depending on where you're from. So I mean, the perfect one I picked up recently was there's a railway tool called a crowbar. Now, growing up, for me, a crowbar was a demolition bar with a hook on one end and with a fork so that you could take out nails and a chisel and at the other end. That was what was called a crowbar for me. That's
See,
what I've
now
always known as a crowbar.
a crowbar for me was always a post in the ground with a T at the top for crows to sit on.
I don't know if you're being funny there, Yamas. But yeah, but yeah, no, I learned that originally a crowbar was a railway tool for moving railway sleepers and adjusting railway spikes, and also assisting in moving railway line. That's what it was for, or sometimes jimming wheels back onto place, or whatnot. Also called a jimmy bar, and again, a jimmy bar to me is now what would be a post digging bar, so a straight bar with a spade chisel end, generally with some can either have a point or a tamping plate at the other end. So that's always been a jimmy bar to me, or
Now,
digging bar.
Now, a jimmy bar to me would be the flat bar with a hook on the end that you reach between the window and the door panel to jimmy a lock when it's for a lock picker.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, exactly. So, and that's what I'm saying about the same tools having different names, and those that evolved from the crowbar that was used on the railway. So it's really interesting about the evolution of names and naming conventions. But going back to the start about what is what are blacksmith and what makes a blacksmith. It is those basic elements of heating and beating and repeating.
Right.
In my opinion, bring it right down to essence. So yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's a name is just what people call it. It's like that. It brings the story of like I can't remember what trade it was, but some you might know this too because all of your archaeological friends. Some people, some archaeologists found some tools, and I think it was leatherworking, and they were like curious as hell what the hell it was. They were like speculating this, speculating that, and some guy, like some leather worker was like, "Oh, that's a this," and showed that he has one that looks exactly like it, and like the design doesn't change because it works,
Mm-hmm.
and they're called different things throughout, not just throughout regions, but throughout time, you know. So I mean, it's like
That's right.
not just regional names for things, but also erical air names across history.
That's it.
As entomology changes. Or is that
And
ants?
I mean, it's also a language thing, right? Again, to use the twir as an example, twir is a French word. It literally means blowpipe.
Well, I'll call it a twir.
Yeah, a twir is the fancy way of saying blowpipe.
Yeah, because I'm
That's
fancy.
it.
I'm fancy.
But and again, depending on it's now become common to call that a twir, but depending on where you are in the world, I can guarantee you, they're back in history, Spanish blacksmiths would not have called it a twir. They would have called it something in Spanish. Portuguese would have called it something in Portuguese. Chinese smith would have called it something in Chinese. Japanese smiths have a name for it. I'm not exactly sure what it is off the top of my head, but it's not twir. It's just as English speakers, twir is a name that we've adopted for it. So and it can literally be as simple as, and I've proven this with the J-Bod Forge, as simple as an iron pipe into the bottom of the forge dish, the forge pot, in order to introduce air to it. You can make it, modern designs, and I do that in inverted commas. Modern designs have gotten, more fancy with, having the ash dump and the clinker breaker and, the actual, fire pot and all that type of thing. But, in essence, a twir is an iron pipe to introduce air to the forge. That's what it is, and it can be clay, it doesn't have to be iron, it can be clay, it can be wood. There are historic examples of wooden tweers that are protected from the fire by a stone or clay facing to the forge, and that's it. So as long as you've got some sort of way to introduce air from a forced air mechanism, be that blower, electric blower, or bellows, or box bellows, or bag bellows, or pot bellows, or whatever. You can even have if you have a big enough opening, have naturally aspirated wind forcing down into a pipe to go into the forge, and that was done. You can turn around and go you can turn around and say to people, you're not a real smith unless you're using the wind and forcing it into a pipe in order to produce your bellows, produce your forced air, and that'll take it right back to the pre-Roman times. So go ahead and do that if someone turns around and goes, you're not a real blacksmith if.
Right.
So yeah, and Sully's back, I see.
I am.
Did you have anything to add?
No, not really. I mean, yeah, we were talking about the different terminologies, this, that, and the other, and I mean, I think that probably holds true in every profession. Vernacular changes depending on location. I mean, like in my profession, like down here, they call the drilling fluid oil-based mud, and like everywhere else I've been, they call it invert because it's invert. The base is it's the inverse. So anyways, the invert. And I always thought, why do you call it oil-based mud when it's so many more syllables than just saying invert? Oh, I got invert on my shoes. Oh, I got oil-based mud on my shoes. I mean, I always thought that was weird that people down here choose to, especially being Texas, and we tend to kind of like Australia, shorten words and phrases, and put less effort into speech. So it boggles my mind that they use the longer version. But then the things like our slings or bridles, or it depends on where you're at as to what they call them. The thing that you hook up to it, and it. When I first broke out in the oil field, it was kind of weird because you get working with people from different oil fields, and then they call something a name, and you're like, the what? Like the first time I heard a certain building called a festoon, I was like, festoon? What the heck is a festoon? It's like, the wire tray. Okay, I got you. But yeah. So I mean, I don't know where I was going with that. My train got derailed, and it wasn't with the railway crowbar. So.
And it's a trial dust. It says it does a lot of bending coal. Guess who's not a real blacksmith? That's not true, and I can tell you now that's not true, right? Because okay, so part of a blacksmith duties back in the day, of course, as we know, was fitting iron tires to wagon wheels or carriage wheels or whatnot. And originally that was done hot until the invention of the coal bender and coal setter. And then all iron tires, even including originally automobile tires, had iron bands on them as well. And then, of course, they moved into rubber. But even those were coal fitted, and coal bent. So it's the only time towards the end, the only time that iron tires would get heated would be to weld them. That was it. So. And then that was after they were bent. So coal bending still technically falls under blacksmithing. So I can tell you now, you're still a blacksmith.
John Burnell's example: soda versus pop versus Coke.
Mm-hmm.
Down here, it's like, hey, I'm going to the store. You want a Coke? Yeah, sure. Go ahead, bring me one. What kind do you want? No, bring me a Dr. Pepper. Everything's a Coke, and then elaborate as to what kind of Coke.
And then
I'll take a gram.
We call it a soft drink, right? As opposed to a hard drink, we call it a soft drink, right? Or a softie, And I've also heard people in the US call them a soda pop. So when it's brought two together. And Sully, you're talking about shortening things in Texas. I reckon a lot of people, a lot of places where it's tropical or gets very hot, I reckon there's two reasons why we shorten things. Is because it's not worth the expanded energy and heat, therefore produced by saying the extra words and all that type of thing. And also, hot places generally have a lot of flies, so we shorten things in order to keep the flies out of our mouths.
You know, talking about all that, think about it. You know, it's like as we move through, wording and everything, we're slowly getting back to hieroglyphics as a language. You know, when you're talking emojis and memes and gifs as a way of communication.
Yeah.
Like,
That's actually a fair point.
yeah,
That also ties back into blacksmithing in a weird way, right?
everything
If you
ties
think
into
about
blacksmithing. We just spent a year explaining how everything ties to blacksmithing.
it, it does. But think about it, right? Most of us, and I'm also talking to people that may be listening that later on that haven't got into blacksmithing or haven't got into blacksmithing in earnest or are just starting out. But as you experience time as a smith and experience other smiths getting through and doing this trade, you pick up on certain cues that allow you to work with other smiths without um, without being able to speak their actual language. And I was in a live stream. I think it was Rob Huff, and we are talking. I think it was Ed Brazil might have been chatting in there as well, talking about Brian, how he spent some time in, or they both spent some time in in Europe, and working with Smiths that didn't speak their language. Didn't speak English, and they didn't speak. It may have been Ukraine. It was another Northern European country that didn't commonly speak English, and they were able to work in that country with Smiths and learn from those Smiths without speaking a lick of the language, because the techniques that we have are transferable, and transcend language barriers. And I can't wait for the time where I'm able to travel to other countries. Of course, as we all know, I'm planning to come in the US, and there is a certain amount of language barrier that's going to be there. But I also can't wait till I can travel to countries where English isn't the first language and be able to experience that firsthand, where I can go and visit a smith and maybe not work with him, but or them or her, but be able to watch and learn from their technique without even having to understand the language. At most be able to communicate that I too am a blacksmith, but just be able to experience and learn from them without even having to speak their language would be amazing thing. And yeah, like Ben Toom said, Yuri Hoffy is a good example of someone that didn't later on in life learned English, but I believe unfortunately Mr. Hoffy has passed, but but still produced and had apprentices and workers with him that they didn't speak the same language, and language the language of smithing transcended the language barrier of the people involved, which was amazing. It's one of the things I love about this trade.
Oh yeah, that's why we try to set a standard for like the smithy talk. Like like you hear somebody go, like if you're team striking or whatever, it's like, yep, it's just a noise, but it's every smith who's worked on a team knows like that's when you strike, that's when you swing,
Mm-hmm.
and that, like the different, like, okay, tap tap is stop, stuff like that.
That's right. But yeah, so that's my 2 cents worth, and I reckon that's a really good way to get back into the year.
Yeah. Well,
to set the basis.
Yeah, we'll have a quick discussion after the show for our after show to decide, any sort of format for the year. But yeah, so this year we will be talking roots.
And don't forget, guys, that for those of you that are in the chat with us, or maybe if you're listening after the fact, you're listening to when we release this on our podcast platforms, you can contact us at impracticalblacksmith@gmail.com and leave suggestions, leave questions. Have a chat to us, if you want to, if you can join us live, of course, we'd love to have you, and we do go live every Sunday morning at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time in order to join in the chat, giving ourselves a bit of a shameless plug here. But we'd love to have you. But if you can't make it, we understand people are busy. Drop us a line in the email. Drop us a line in Discord. We'd love to hear from you, and we'd also love to hear your ideas. If you want to ask us a question about something, we may not be direct experts in the topic that you want to talk about, but drop it to us anyway, and we will cover it, because between the three of us, we have access to some wonderful and knowledgeable people. Of course, Roy from Christ and Ironworks does join us in the chat occasionally. We do have access to him. We can pick his brain on certain things. And we also have access to other people that are much more experienced in general things, in parts of blacksmithing than we are. We are the Impractical Blacksmiths. We can get a little bit weird and strange and do things impractically, but we have access to people that actually know what they're talking about.
I want to make a quick little point here. Dragonwater Forge says they think that YouTube has unsubscribed them to channels thought they weren't on anymore. If you don't interact with a channel for a certain amount of time, you stop getting notifications. I mean, you'll still be subscribed. I mean, I've heard of people getting unsubscribed, but I noticed myself, just sitting there thinking, hey, I haven't seen a video from Nerd Rage in a while, and then I go and I click on the channel. It's like, oh, just put something out last month and the month before. I never got a notification for it, even though it's turned on. And then after watching one video, now I get the notifications again. So by interacting with it, like when you get the notifications and you just dismiss them enough times, it'll stop giving you the notification. So you channels you want to watch, go through your list of subscribed channels. And one of them, you go, oh, hey, I remember this person. I wonder if they're still putting out videos. Go to their channel, watch a video. It'll kick you back into the getting notifications from them again. So I did notice that here in the last few months that some channels, same thing. Some channels that I thought had just gone silent. Turns out no, they've been putting out content the whole time. It's just I didn't interact with them enough for a while. Because whatever, the notification comes up for the video and I'm like, yeah, I'm not really interested in watching that one, and then, just swipe it to the left. And, the next week, yeah, nope, I already know about that. I don't need to watch that one, swipe it to the left. You do that enough times and they just stop telling you about it. So, I recommend everybody every once in a while, go through your subscriber list or subscriptions list. And those people that you do want to get their notifications, it would go do a little bit of interaction and it'll get you kind of back into the algorithm for their, what do you call it? Content. There we go. That's the word I was looking for. Content.
And following on that, along that same note, as content creators, we do get notified. And when you comment or whatnot, when you engage with a channel, for example, I just had, and I love him to death for this, but Thomas Goodymoot just come and left a comment on one of my older videos. Because he really liked it, and I got a pop-up notifying me I got a comment. I was like, oh, didn't know he come and watch my channel, so that's, don't forget, drop in, leave a like, leave a comment. It does appreciate, not to talk about here, but your favorite, your content creators that you might not interact with anymore. Go back and hit them up again and like some of their stuff, and it'll get it back onto your rotation.
And also, I promised to really get some podcast episodes edited. I'm not going to do it today because I got to go to work this evening. But my next probably my next days off. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to get all of them all the way back to June set up and scheduled, and I'm going to probably set them to drop every 3 or 4 days for the next foreseeable future. That'll be on like the 19th, 20th, something like that. I'm going to get that set up. I'll sit down. I'll spend 3 hours putting it all together, getting it all uploaded, and we'll go from there. But I know I apologize every week. Oh, I haven't done it. Oh, I haven't done it. I haven't done it, and it's just like, and especially like since Christmas, I've been kind of so distracted with some personal stuff that's kind of taken priority in my life. That everything else just kind of falls to the wayside. So um, I got to kind of delegate my attention, so to speak. So yeah, I will get that done. I'm aiming for the 20th. Saturday the 20th is when I'm going to sit down and just like do an editing spree and get all that stuff set to drop. So I apologize for the delay in that. I know Kevin's probably the only one in here that listens to it, and he's just like been listening to the last one that dropped over and over and over again. But I will get that done here in a couple weeks, and I appreciate y'all's patience in that regard.
Yeah.
And to our listeners later on, we thank you for your patience as well, because we understand that you know, for those of you that like to listen, it's been a while between drops, but life happens. We still do the episodes, but life happens, and that's why we encourage you to join in on the live streams if you have a chance, because that way you get to hear it straight up, and you can get your questions answered directly too. But yeah, don't hesitate to drop us a line on the email or in the Discord if you have a question you want answered. We will get to it. So yeah.
Yep.
That's pretty much a show.
Yeah, I think that was a pretty good closing. We all got kind of final thoughts in. I had a final joke, but I forgot it because I've been bouncing all over the place. Probably for the best.
Yep.
Yeah.
So don't forget, everyone. You can find Alexis at Transcendental Artist Studios, and that's on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok, I believe. I don't have my script up here at the moment. And you can find Yames on Island Metal Forge on YouTube and Instagram. And you can find me. Sorry.
I was going to say a lot of my socials are also the Alexis Project 20. So yeah, that a lot of my content is kind of shifted to that. I used to keep a lot of stuff separate, and now I've kind of just like it's kind of all like needling into one or the other. So
yep.
Continue.
And
Sorry.
You're right. You can find me, Adam, at Speargrass Forge on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. And I've already done the channel plug. So thank you very much for joining us, and we will catch us all next Sunday. We're back to our regularly scheduled service every Sunday morning at 10 a.m. at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's in the US. In Australia, it's 12:30 a.m. Australian Central Standard Time. That's late Sunday night, early Sunday morning. But do check that against your local time, as it will change for you depending on where you are in Australia and if you have daylight savings time or not. Of course, we do update that through the course of the year because the US Eastern does have daylight saving time as well. So that does change for us as well. So, but yeah, don't forget to check that against your local time. But every Sunday morning, unless we're taking holidays, we generally let you know that before it happens. So welcome to season 4? Season 5? Season 4.
I think we're on 5. I don't know. I'd have to go back.
Yeah. 3 on the pod. So
3 on the pod. Yeah. So
that would make 5 for the YouTube show.
6 years plus since I went live for the first time.
Yep. So welcome to season 3 of Impractical Blacksmiths, the Impractical Blacksmiths podcast, and season 4 for the Sunday morning gathering. And we look forward to this year. Yeah, season 7 for Yames live on YouTube. Yeah, but we look forward to this year and spending many, many good times with you. Happy New Year. I hope you've had a great holidays, and we'll catch you next time.
Yep. Y'all are wonderful. Thank y'all, and catch you later.